Hey, Scott Jordan and Mark Warner here from the Bullen Broadcasting Studios. And let's make sure we are the proper distance.
What do we have there, Scott?
6 feet.
All right, we're socially distanced.
Yep. So welcome to a new show. We've been promising the new format, and this is it. We did the virtual trade show here about a month and a half ago, and now we formalized it. We got our equipment all dialed in. So this is kind of like 99.9%. It's kind of like a sanitizer claim. The broadcast, I think, is going to go really, really well. But Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm 99.9% effective. It sounds like we've got a little attitude on today's program.
Yeah, and for people that don't know about it, we'll cover that in future shows because, people think when it says 99 point whatever that's doing everything, right, Mark?
They are very often confused by that. So yeah, we want to get into the definitions. I mean, realistically, some of what we've been hearing is the need for people to get some specific training, some education on things like the terminology and how do we define sanitizers and disinfectants and how do I use it and how do I improve where I'm at. And Scott, you mentioned last week during the broadcast that we're engaging in a new platform called Extreme Cleanliness.
Yep, working towards it. Hey, I forgot to say, this is show number 85 for Jancast, and it's our COVID update because we transitioned from the COVID update to Jancast. So this is Jancast number 85 for January 28th. Sorry about that. So that's why we said it was 99.9%.
So the main reason really for the transition there's several reasons. One is there's a legacy related to the Jancast platform, which won awards in 2004. But also it is a more generalized view of the cleaning industry that goes beyond just COVID. And so there's a need for things that go beyond just disinfection and COVID. And this becomes a perfect platform for doing that.
Yeah, and fortunately, we're hearing good news about COVID. The rates are slowing down a little bit, so that transition also will take us into the other areas of healthy cleaning and everything else involved with that. So today we're in the Bullen Broadcasting Studios, and we have studios means there's more than one place we're going to be filming, so that's very exciting. We'll be showing you some of those clips later on, but what do we have to talk about today, Mark? Well,
part of it is a segue from what we introduced last week, and that was that there's a lot of different aspects of what we want to use the Bullen Broadcasting Studios for. One of them is training that's quite specific to products, and it's a way of Bullen introducing people to different products and different brands. But even beyond that, a lot of times there's a benefit in understanding the chemistry behind it. What is it the products like this are trying to accomplish? And we're going to show a little bit of that. We're also going to get into the whole tactical training, and that basically means how do you do something? How do I do a floor? How do I clean a bathroom? How do I properly do those tasks? In what order? In what steps? What's considered best practice? And then there's another level of training and education that'll take us into something called strategic training, which is things that go beyond just the tactics. It's things like workloading and staffing consideration and productivity rate assessments and ways of identifying what your cleanliness benchmark is so that you can make adjustments and changes to your chemistry, your tools, your equipment, or your staff, and then measure it again to figure out if you've had any gains. And that's a part of the big picture, Scott, of extreme cleanliness. And where we want to go with that is how can you call something extreme cleanliness without defining what that is? And of course, that's where measurement comes to play.
Yeah, otherwise, without measurement, you don't know whether or not you accomplished the task that you started out for. So we're going to give a little teaser as to some of that product training. We're going to show a demo on how surfactants work and what effect they have on solutions. So we're going to show that right now, and then we'll come back into the show right after that demo.
So one of the questions that always comes up has to do with what do chemicals actually do? And my answer is often it makes water wetter. You want to see somebody look confused, you ought to say that to them sometime at a cocktail party. But anyway, the bottom line is water isn't very thin. Water actually has body to it. It's called surface tension. If you think about putting a drop of water on a door hinge, for example, it's just going to sit at the top and stare back at you. Or on the other hand, if you put a drop of penetrating oil on a door hinge, it's going to run all the way down through the hinge. Why? Because that penetrating oil doesn't have a strong surface tension like water does, which basically is a problem. Water is one of the world's best cleaning agents, except it doesn't penetrate well because it's got surface tension. And you may be thinking, what are you talking about? How intense can that surface tension really be? Well, I'm about to show you how intense water surface tension is. This is a real heavy-duty paperclip, solid metal. And you may be wondering, you can't float solid metal on water, or can you? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a chemical that's loaded with surface-acting agents called surfactants. This happens to be Airx 101. And once I treat this water with this surface-acting agent, it'll no longer be able to float a paperclip. In fact, no matter how hard I try now, I cannot float a paperclip. The water now has no more surface tension left.
There you go. That was very interesting.
That was amazing, wasn't it?
Wow. So spectacular. Who would have thought that paper clips can float?
Right.
I mean, it's but it's a visual thing that to explain surfactants to people is relatively difficult. But I think your demo in particular was really nice because it's a visual thing. You can see the cause and effect.
Well, I think it sets the stage of how we intend to approach conversations about chemistry. Normally you might hear somebody say, let me teach you about chemistry, and then you got to hide a yawn. But in reality, it can be pretty exciting and pretty interesting to see what it is we're trying to accomplish and even see how we might compare different products that are maybe tasked with the same purpose, but work in different degrees of effectiveness based on how they're built. Yep. And that's real important, and a lot of times people don't know. And when they don't know the difference between products or what it is they're trying to do, then it becomes very difficult to measure the difference between products or justify why one might be better for your application than another product might be. So that's, an educated person is the kind of people that tend to gravitate towards the Bullen companies. Did you like how I slid that in there?
Well, it's important to know the science and the facts behind certain things. Otherwise, it's somewhat marketing, and that kind of gets back to, for those of you that have been watching the COVID update, our greenwashing.com, germwashing.com, and how people just kind of market stuff saying, oh yeah, it does this and does that without any facts. So we're really going to get into this is why things work and why they don't work under certain circumstances. So it's pretty interesting. We're also going to take you deep into the bathroom, and we'll show you a little clip of that right now. Wow, I don't know if I needed to go that close to the toilet or not, but that gives you an idea of our other part of our, we call it studios, because we have a full,
multiple sets.
Yep, we got a kitchen area, we got nice floors we can deal with, so we got a lot of possible areas within the broadcasting studios to show you all the stuff we're talking about.
And that ties in with doing what's called tactical training, which is the task itself and what you do. And it's not like most people, I've always had people say to me, well, who doesn't know how to clean? And they're missing the whole point. Anybody can clean given enough time, but the reality of it is professionals are measured on how effective they are, how efficient they are. Yep. So the idea is to be able to perform it at an extremely high level in a very efficient manner. Otherwise, departments for colleges, universities, K through 12 schools, you know, if they aren't able to perform things in a highly efficient manner, it may take them all day just to do a room. Yeah. In reality, that's not the sign of true professionalism. True professionalism is measured by how efficient they can be effective. That's called best practice. So what we're going to do is acknowledge that there's multiple ways to do things, but we're going to share with you a general consensus of what's considered to be the step-by-step sequence that's thought to be the most efficient way to be effective. And so we'll be able to embrace and teach best practices.
Also talk about things like, we watched a seminar yesterday that the ISSA put out talking about, do you need to disinfect a ceiling? No, you don't need to disinfect the ceiling. So you can be wasting a lot of time doing things that aren't even necessary, because if you're worried about touch surfaces, if you can't touch the ceiling, then what's the point of it?
You know, and kudos to ISSA, to Patty and Gavin. You guys did a great job yesterday, and I've actually been engaged with people today, and an awful lot of people tuned into that. So kudos to you, and that ties in with what we're saying. I mean, there are things that need to be done, other things that shouldn't be done. They're just wasteful. So we'll be diving into that. And then at a deeper level, you know, we're going to be able to talk about things that are more strategic in nature. So that takes measurement. And if you can't measure it, then how do you document that you've made improvements, or the reverse? Maybe better. So that gives us the opportunity to show you what some of this equipment looks like. Isn't that amazing equipment, Scott?
Well, we did spend a little bit of money on this, but it's well worth it. And I think, you know, with the social distancing rules and not being able to make end user calls and training being more difficult, this is the future. Even if COVID completely goes away, people are going to say, well, that's, you know, a lot more efficient to do certain things remotely versus live. So I think that gives you a good idea what we're going to be doing in the future from the Bullen Broadcasting Studios.
Well, linking, just to reinforce, not everything that we're going to do is just going to be recorded content. Some of this is the opportunity to do live streaming training events, educational events, or even supply chain updates. And what's so fantastic about doing it live, Scott, is that anybody that's watching live has the opportunity to engage with us immediately. We've got ask questions, and we can immediately answer.
We have a screen right there that we can see the people on, just like you do with Zoom. We're going to have multiple people up there and answer questions back and forth. So it's very interactive, as well as, we hope, very educational.
Well, have I said this lately, but this is really cool.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So thank you very much for tuning in on our first show from the BBS. Even though we did our virtual training trade show from here, this is our first Jancast show / COVID update from the BBS. So thank you very much, and hope you found the content we're teasing you with this week interesting.
So, you know, any good movie gets a preview out there, a trailer. So this is the trailer of the BBS. Anyway, thanks for joining us.
Let's get back to work. Whoops, if I can get my mask on.
Thanks, everybody.
See you all.